I'm interested in how our communities will respond to the challenges of our time. And when we look at the challenges framed in this systemic diagram of the Sustainable Development Goals, we know that we are facing environmental overshoot, climate change, we're facing fragmented communities, we're facing inequalities, social inequalities, economic uncertainty, long supply chains that we're totally dependent on for our needs and make us so vulnerable. So how do we strengthen the resilience of our communities and make a transition to a more sustainable future? How can local action address these global goals? And how might we meet the commitments we've made to the Paris Agreement? So for the last 20 years, as Mongon says, I've been involved in community-led projects, sustainable community projects here. And in the short time I have with you, I want to share just some stories and insights from that work in that time. I'm going to focus on 4 areas. I'm going to focus quickly on food. We all eat. I'm going to focus on energy, mobility, and transport really quickly. So as Mongon says, I work through Cultivate. We're actually a workers' cooperative. We act as an NGO and civil society organization, but our real name is Sustainable Ireland Cooperative. And you might remember us from our Living and Learning Centre in Temple Bar we ran for 8 years, or with Eco UNESCO, the greenhouse in St Andrew Street that we ran for 2 years before we made the move to Clough-Jordan Eco-Village. And Clough-Jordan really is an interesting ecosystem of innovation. Although it's run by educational charity, Sustainable Projects Ireland, there's probably over 15 cooperatives, social enterprises, civil society organizations operating within this. And our objective right from the start in 1999 was, how do we move from the fringe and the marginal, how do we mainstream and normalize sustainability? So instead of building a new village, we joined a very traditional rural village, Clough-Jordan in Tipperary. It's the longest and most expensive self-development course I've ever taken, and we all know that working in communities, you learn so much about yourself. It's challenging. We have a lot of learning, though, and we frame our work as a learning community, learning ourselves and sharing our learning. Our objective isn't to replicate Clough-Jordan, it's to show and give inspiration of many different models that we could use to provide our needs and live in a more sustainable way. I'm going to start with food. Food's so important, and underpinning food, good food, is healthy soil. I'm involved right now in a European Horizon 2020 project. My colleague Pavlos is with me today. We're involved in a project called the Grow Observatory, and that is looking to try and get citizens aware of the importance of our soil, regenerating soil, and also through citizen science, monitoring our soil and contributing data, open data, to validate the satellites and help with climate science. So food, good soil, is really a thing that we're doing in our Clough-Jordan Eco-Village. One of the approaches we take to food is much more collaborative and participative. It's about changing the relationship with our food producers. One of the big successes, I think, is our community-supported agriculture project. Community-supported agriculture, Mongon mentioned the Moy Hill community. Community-supported agriculture is a different relationship, a different approach to connecting producers and consumers. So instead of purchasing your food, you subscribe to the farm. We have 75 subscribers. We're only farming 12 acres. We employ 2 farmers who are getting a better rate than they would if they were just growing themselves. Those farmers don't have to think about market. They don't have to negotiate with the supermarkets or even stand with their produce after a busy week trying to sell in the farmer's market. We are connected deeply to our community, to the farmers connected to the market, and the community connected to their growers. This idea of community-supported agriculture, there's maybe 7 in Ireland. It's really quite massive all over Europe, across in North America. But this idea of community-supported, this takes shop local into a completely different level. We also have at the Eco-Village, as part of our food ecosystem, one of the best bakers in Ireland, Joe Fitzmaurice, rye bread. It's sourdough, it's wood-fired, and it's fantastic bread. But he also has a bread club. So I subscribe directly to the baker. Every week I get at a discount 2 fantastic loaves of bread delivered right to my house. Before Joe starts baking, he knows he's got that guaranteed cash flow. He's supported by the community. We call it clubbing together for rural revitalization. We have an egg club, a bread club, a milk club, a meat club, a whole food buyers club. And this idea of community supported, we could take into every aspect of our lives. What about energy? Well, there's a big trend now in community ownership around energy. We need to move to renewables. We need to do it really quickly. We need to wean ourselves off of fossil fuels. We need to divest from that. And through a sort of distributed or decentralized approach, every neighborhood could become a power station. With a solar revolution and rooftop revolution, every street, every neighborhood could be a community power station. So this idea of community ownership, could unblock the acceleration of renewable energy. So there's a lot of these community approaches going on. We see it in mobility. Yes, we need to walk more, design walkable communities, do more cycling infrastructure, public transport, and great news about electric cars. Within 10 years, we're going to be able to buy an combustion engine. You're only able to buy electric cars. But could we go further? In Cloughjordan, we have a nice carpool email thing. Just on the bulletin, you want to go somewhere, you put it out, you're offering a lift, you put it out, and we can do the carpooling. But we also have a car club. So maybe I think there's about 12 families share 3 cars, and they've got a little app to control that and to monitor that. And we see now in Dublin and in cities everywhere the idea of car clubs. Go-Car, you see Go-Car. So Go-Car, interestingly enough, was started in Cloughjordan Eco-Village. And the car club model shows this new trend in collaborative consumption. Rather than owning and having the burden of a car and the maintenance and the parking and the taxing and the insurance, why don't we just have access to the use of that resource, of that asset? And that idea of collaborative economy is moving everywhere, especially millennials. I don't need to own it. I don't need the status of having the car and the type of car as defining who I am. I just need to use the car when I need it and get a bill for usage when I finish using it at the end of the month, like my phone bill. So this idea of the sharing economy is moving now beyond Airbnb and Uber into community-owned platforms where the users and the benefit and directly benefit from these new platforms. Housing, another big issue. Yes, we need to power down our houses, future-proof them, make them more energy efficient, use less energy, but we need to move to, we could move to a different way. Is going into massive debt or renting without secure tenure the only option for housing? No, I think there's other ways, and I'm involved in Cloughjordan Co-Housing, where we're exploring developing a small neighborhood, about 14 units. We all have our own private space, but everything that idles in our houses, fridges, washing machines, guest bedrooms, can be brought into a collective space where we've got a little laundry, where we've got a bigger kitchen, where we've got a room for functions. And this idea, I've visited about 10 across Europe. It's commonplace across Europe. For some reason, I don't know if it's culturally, we have a barrier to this idea of renting or collaborating, and we need to own. But this idea, I started researching it from affordability. Our young people and low-income people need to secure their housing in a different way. And we looked at it from an affordability point of view, but at the end of the day, I was going, this is a well-being issue. We need to live in a different way outside of the isolation and boxes that's causing the mental health issues that we're facing now. So there's 4 little inspirational stories of different things that are going on. I'm part then to accelerate this and to bring it further of Ecolease. It's a meta-network of networks across Europe looking at a community-supported approach. and is trying to connect to policymakers and to researchers to speed up this adoption of this. So at the heart of this community-led and locally based initiative, to me, it's the building blocks of a new economy, of a different future. It provides essential services in a completely different way that's more equitable and definitely more sustainable, but it builds our resilience, our ability to cope with the challenges that we face. At the heart of this approach is collaboration, more connection, participation, belonging, a sense of place which we yearn for, but is rare now as our communities become more and more fragmented. So I believe that this community-led approach could help us address the Sustainable Development Goals, help us reach our climate targets, build more social capital, and give us the ability to have a good life in a very, very different way. Thank you.